Welcome. So what is the long-term plan for motorists in the UK and across the world? We all know by now, I'm sure, it's not about global warming, CO2 emissions, or the end of civilization, as light vehicles make up only 7% of greenhouse gases, and it's industry and farming, along with heating our homes, which are the biggest culprits. So why the war on motorists? Is there a hidden agenda lurking beneath the surface, under the guise of saving the planet, and have politicians been bought and paid for by the globalist elite to fool the Western world into believing all this net zero, end of the world rhetoric? And the most gullible and easily influenced in society have been manipulated into promoting this kind of end of days scenario, with the likes of Just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion puppets having no real idea of what they are protesting about, or have any great knowledge of the subject if questioned in depth, and don't know who's bankrolling their so-called cause. In years to come, when those behind these movements are exposed, these soldiers on the ground will lower their heads in shame and disbelief, I'm sure. So what is the long-term globalist plan? I have a theory which many others seem to agree on. It's the plan to remove our ability to own a vehicle and limit where we travel and how far. We are bombarded on a daily basis about how green electric cars are, and we should scrap our old ICE vehicles and buy one. But more and more evidence emerges about the environmental footprint of an EV, from production through to shipment and finally sale to the customer, and the eco-negativity of the manufacture of their batteries and the mining of cobalt, which is perhaps one of the most problematic materials used in electric vehicles, both environmentally and socially. Cobalt mines produce toxic residues that can leach into the environment, poisoning groundwater and harming nearby communities. And when one of these vehicles is involved in an accident, which many more will be as more are sold, the toxic fumes from thermal runaway and the thousands of gallons of water required to dampen the fire, which then runs into our waterways, the impact for those breathing in those fumes and wildlife drinking or swimming in the contaminated water would be devastating. But I think the globalists know this, and it's part of the long-term plan. As ICE vehicles fail MOTs due to tighter emission standards and can no longer be taxed, SAWN as an option would be removed, and vehicles would be scrapped by law. And by 2040, it would leave just EVs as an option. And for those who can't afford them, subsidised public transport would be the only travel means available. As EV sales increase and more are involved in accidents, the impact from fumes and contaminated waterways would be headline news, and some terrible fires in underground car parks with loss of life would result in a rise of pressure groups like Just Stop EV Production, maybe, and financed by you-know-who. With cobalt and other precious metals in decline and battery science not improving, the globalists would announce that EV production would end in 2050 and existing cars would be limited to certain locations and parking areas at high cost. And because of the infrastructure required, road tax for EVs would rise considerably, along with the cost of electricity and car insurance costing thousands. The sale of EVs would thus decline. And with concerns about battery safety, the sale of second-hand EVs would be banned and scrapped if the original owner could no longer afford to run it. The globalist plan would be to remove your personal mobility to travel wherever and whenever you please, and limit your options to public transport only, which would have, obviously, a limited distance within your county boundaries, and you would need a personal travel warrant to venture further afield, which you would need to apply for months ahead of your trip. A holiday abroad would have been banned years prior due to the environmental impact. People in countries or counties reliant on tourism would be paid a minimum living wage if no other income was available. Often referred to as 15-minute cities, all your personal requirements would be within these boundaries, and you would need a very good reason to travel outside of your designated area. Everyone by then would have a government-supplied ID card with a locator built in to monitor your movement. They have it now with mobile phones, but too many people have the location app switched off, so they are now putting pressure on mobile phone companies to remove the option. It would be an offence to not carry your ID with you, and the police would have the authority to stop anyone and ask to see it. You would be fined if you were not carrying it, and taken into custody if you weren't holding any other identification. All for your own good, and others' safety, of course. As of the 1st of March 2024, we currently have the Conservatives in power. Many think that Labour will win the general election later in the year. I'm not so sure. I wouldn't bet on it. They are effectively the same party, just different coloured ties, playing out a pantomime on a daily basis to fool us all into imagining we live in a democratic country. Our only hope would be the Reform Party. But will the globalists step in if reform starts to become a threat to the status quo, as they did with Jeremy Corbyn? We shall see. Alternative news on YouTube, such as Talk TV and GB News, will have been banned by Ofcom by 2030. And YouTube and other outlets for freedom of speech will eventually be banned, along with Russell Brand and even this channel. The BBC will have its own channel, which the public would fund and fill the airwaves with propaganda on a daily basis, as they do now. It's already in the pipeline, with the licence fee supposedly ending in 2027, but replaced with a media licence, which would be exactly the same thing with a different name, and everyone with a mobile or cell phone would be forced to have one, TV or not. This is the dystopian future as I see it. Hopefully it will not come to fruition, but deep down I feel we are heading there. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Comment your thoughts. Don't attack those who disagree. The freedom to speak your mind is a fundamental right which we currently enjoy. Agree to disagree and share this video with like-minded souls who enjoy the freedom of motoring in the UK and freedom to be who we want to be, regardless of the despots in power. Support other channels with similar content and subscribe to them so they reach more viewers. Enjoy your ICE vehicles while you still can, and note, I have nothing against EVs. Freedom of choice is paramount. Travel as much as possible and vote against councils inflicting ULEZ and 20-mile-an-hour schemes. More to follow. Remember, people should not be afraid of their government. The government and councils should be afraid of the voters. Thank you for your time.